So my team has been measuring ocean temperatures for a number of years. And in fact, we've been able to collect data that goes back to the 1950s. And around 1958 is when we had enough temperature sensors in the ocean to have a pretty clear picture of what the entire ocean was doing. Now, why do we need so many temperature sensors? Well, think about your body. If you take a oral thermometer to get a temperature, maybe an ear thermometer, one of those infrared thermometers, maybe one under the armpit, and you might get 3 different results. So what is the temperature of your body? The answer is your temperature varies depending on location and time. So you just with the human body, you might need more than one temperature sensor. Imagine the ocean. The ocean covers 70% of the planet, goes down on an average of about 5,000 meters. What's the temperature of the ocean? You need a lot of sensors, and you need them spread out around the ocean. And you need them to not just measure the ocean's surface temperature, but deep into the ocean. And to get enough sensors that can do that is challenging. Now, what my team has done is we have used a series of ocean sensors that have been employed over the last few decades, and they've been getting better and better with time, but we've stitched them together to make a coherent picture. Now, I'll give you a few examples. One of the most important ocean temperature sensors that are out there is termed the XBT. XBT. That stands for expendable bathythermograph. And you never want to say that, so we just say XBT. These are little probes that get thrown over the side of ships, and they fall through the ocean water. They measure temperature, and then the ship, the scientist on the ship now has temperature at the location where they drop this probe. Hundreds of thousands of these probes have been used around the oceans, and they were very commonly used in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. In addition to that, we have, around 2005, a number of countries have cooperated to come out with a new design of a temperature sensor called the Argo float. Now, the Argo float, there's about 3,500 of them around the oceans, and it's a robotic float that, or like a buoy in the oceans. And it has a bow, just like a sub can rise and fall by changing its buoyancy, so can this float. And it rises and falls in the ocean water. It goes down to about 2,000 meters. And then over a few days, it comes up to the top, then it goes back down, and then it comes back up to the surface. And as it's going up and down, it's recording temperatures. And then when it gets to the surface, it sends that temperature data to labs. So those are phenomenal measurements, and they cover most of the ocean. And by stitching together the XBTs and the Argo floats, we now have a picture of the ocean that goes back to the 60s. And we're using some other sensors in areas that Argo and XBTs don't work, like under ice shelves. We can't get a probe under an ice shelf, so we're instrumenting animals with temperature sensors. Seals that'll swim under the ice sheets, and as they swim, they gather temperatures. So as you can see, to measure the oceans over a long period of time, because you need to measure multiple decades, but also over space, we've employed a variety of temperature sensors. And when you bring all of that information together, you get a picture of what the oceans are doing. And what the oceans are doing is heating up pretty rapidly. And we are seeing the heating real time. And we're also seeing the impacts on weather around the world. So this is something that not only tells us what's happening to the climate, but gives us some insight about what's going to happen to our weather on land as well.